welcome to another episode of Moments with Nyengeterai. I'm so excited, I just want to say thank you to all the subscribers. Thank you to all the people who've been following our podcast, sharing the amounts of comments, I can't even start to just say thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the people that you're asking me to bring on the show. Just the fact that you're watching the show to the end, it means a lot to me. And we'll continue to try and give you the best show that we can. And today we have another phenomenal guest, an amazing young woman who I've just watched grow. And I watch her and I sometimes wonder, she's like, she should just have that red cape and be called Superwoman. Really, honestly, Sylvia, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and really excited for you, Nyenge, because this has just grown into something so amazing.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. So, before we go any further, I just want you to explain to people who Sylvia is. I know you,
Right.
And people probably know you from a different perspective, maybe from your social media. But just give them in a short few, like, who is Sylvia?
Sylvia is Sylvia is a person that I think a lot of times the best way to describe me is a woman of faith, and who has been called to serve. And I say that because of everything that has happened around me, whether it's my business, the events business, or the foundation, or just life in general. I find that the greater calling on me is to transform people's lives, and that gives me fulfillment over anything else.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm already wanting to unpack things just from there, but I'll wait a little bit. But Sylvia, just there's so many things. I think we've talked a lot. We've gone through life,
Yeah.
and there's just so many chapters and areas of your life that I want to touch on. But I think for me, I think the biggest thing that I want you to talk about is just how being a mother has transformed your life.
So being a mom to me has transformed my life and parenting in an amazing way. And I think that's the one thing that actually speaks to every single thing that I do. And the reason I say that is because I've got a husband, one husband. His name is Eddie. I've got a husband, an amazing husband called Eddie, and Eddie and I have two out of three children who have a condition called Fanconi Anemia. And for two of our children, Natasha and Nathan, they had to have bone marrow transplants at some point in their lives. So Natasha had her transplant when she was 5 in 2013. And I'm happy to say the transplant was successful. She's 15 now. Wow. And Nathan had his transplant at the age of 4, and he's 8. And our middle child, Raymond, was the donor for both.
Wow.
So as a mom, when you give birth to your children, your assumption is that, life is going to go without incident. What you expect are, a random cough here, flu here. Never do you imagine that you will deal with things like chemotherapy, losing hair, or your child passing blood 21 times a day, or having the birth weight of 6 kgs when he's 4 years old, because he's so sick and is on life support, And so I've had to deal with all of those things as a mom, and it has been challenging, right? but it brought out something in me that I never knew I had. Some strength and resilience, and more importantly, a gift that I value so much, which is faith. Because when our children went through whatever they went through, it required us to have unshakable faith and hope. We had to tap into something really deep, and in order for us to be able to go through what we went through. And so even as a mom, you know, you're seated at the bedside, the hospital bedside, sorry, and you're looking at your child. They're helpless. They're just looking up to you. They're in pain. And so I had to remain positive, even on a day that I wanted to cry, even on a day that I was literally breaking down as a mom. And that has changed me completely. People look at me now and they assume that I have it together. But because of what I experienced with my children, I have this resilience, I have this faith, I have this hope that things will get better, even when you're going through the most terrible storm. That if you hang on enough, you'll be okay.
Sure, Silva. I first met you. I came you had a concert for Natasha.
Right.
I remember you raising funds to go to India, and I remember one of them was performing, and I just came on a company ticket because we wanted to help and to donate. But hearing your story, it just changed my thought, because I had 3 daughters by then. I just thought, you know what, please give birth and kids are normal and things are okay. But when you said your story, I remember you went on stage and you were telling your story about the day you were told. I don't know if you can just recall, if you can just tell our audience what happened when you sat then you were told about Natasha's case and the emotions that you went through. I promise you that moved me. Yeah.
Right. So I remember Natasha initially had a bruise on her right hand, and I ignored it. Obviously, you look and you're like, oh, you ask her whether she bumped into something, and she says no, and it didn't look really bad. So we kind of ignored it and said, okay, it'll clear, they're kids. And then a week later, she had an even bigger bruise on her thigh, which was very concerning. And I remember that time my husband had traveled with my father. They'd gone out of the country. So I said to our help, Wendy, let's go and get this checked out. Because she's the one that actually pointed it out to me. And we went to the hospital and they took blood tests and said, look, the results will come out tomorrow. Maybe come back at around 3 or 4. Before 3 o'clock, we got a call from the hospital and they said, you need to come with Natasha right away. Where is she? And I'm like, oh, I actually have her in the car, because we had planned that she would go with her brother to their grandma and grandpa's, because they used to do that a lot. And so I was actually with my mom and suitcases in the car. We went to the hospital. And when we got there, everybody was in a frenzy. They're like, is this Natasha? People are running around. I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, your child is bleeding internally. I'm like, what do you mean? Because in as much as she had those bruises, she was still playing, laughing, doing anything that a 5-year-old would seemingly do. And so got there, and then they said, look, blood counts, platelets are supposed to be between 150 and 450. Hers are on 18. So she's at this point, it's life-threatening. It was all just so overwhelming. And then they called in a hematologist, And then later, called in an oncologist, this amazing doctor called Dr. Kuona, who to this date we work with now. And then Dr. Kuona came back and said, would like to do a few tests, and then came back with the news that Natasha had a condition called Fanconi Anemia. Her bone marrow had failed, and she needed a bone marrow transplant.
Did you even know what it was? I mean, like, did you even understand what they were saying?
Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't. And this would then affect our decision to have a child later on. Because, and I'm sure we'll talk about Nathan, because if we had had a chance to get somebody to actually sit down with us and really explain what it was, when we decided to have another child, we could have possibly made an informed decision. But at that point, they used so many big words like recessive genes, bone marrow failure. They used, bone marrow aspiration, the tests that they were doing. And it was all so new to us and just really overwhelming. Because remember, you're also still trying to go through the motions. One time your child was okay, and now you're being told that whatever she has is life-threatening. And for me, I went on Google, and sometimes
Dr. Google.
Dr. Google just makes things worse, right? And so, yeah, that was very difficult for us.
How did this affect your marriage with your husband?
It actually brought us together. Wow. Like, so when we heard that we needed, Natasha had bone marrow failure, we were told that we needed $100,000 US in order for her to get her transplant, and we needed it in a few days. And hearing that, Eddie and I both had a choice to resign to our fate and say, look, we've gone through something like this. $100,000 is not the kind of money that we have. We're just a middle income family. And so we could have done that. But we sat down and said, okay, this is what we're going through. But I hope, so I said to him, I hope you'll agree with me that we have to fight. We cannot just accept that Natasha is unwell. She needs lots of money to get better. We have to do everything within our power to make sure that she survives. Obviously, God has the final say, but as parents and custodians of the angel that God had given us, we had to do something. And so him saying, yes, I completely agree, and coming on board was so amazing for me because I knew I had support. Eddie never missed a doctor's appointment. We would go to interviews together. We would do things together. I remember when we started doing the fundraiser, we would sleep at 2 a.m. and wake up at 6. If we put a flyer out, his number was there, mine was there. So I never really felt alone. And that really brought us closer, in essence. And even as we then went through the transplant, we went to India together. And there was never, this is your role and this is mine. If Natasha's diaper needed to be changed, he would do it. If he felt I needed to rest, or if he felt that I was tired and dishes needed to be done, he would do that. He was a very present partner for me and a present father.
That means a lot. And now, when you were just speaking about how when they were talking to you about Natasha and the diagnosis, and then a few years later having the same with Nathan, take me through that. I mean, how I mean, I mean, we humans, and we
Yeah.
can only go through so much at any one time. I remember feeling pain for you, and now I'm thinking, what were you going through at that time to say, you know what, God, again, really?
Yeah. So I remember with Natasha's transplant, as I said, we had to raise 100,000 US dollars, and we had to do it in 10 days. So even that was difficult to go through. Then we went through the transplant, and your chemo side effects, from the runs, no appetite, mouth ulcers, a lot of things that went on, losing the hair, and me losing my hair too, and just people praying the world over. And you think to yourself, after having gone through this, Lord, I don't think I'll ever have to go through another trial, right? Because that was so difficult. And we'd always wanted to have 3 children. So when we came back in 2014, when we came back, life was seemingly normal. And we said, look, okay, let's try for a third child. And so we did. And we had Nathan. And when we had Nathan, I remember the doctor coming to me. Before that, he had not, I would go for my doctor's checks and everything was fine. And so doctor comes, he's always been my gynae, so I knew him well. But, and he would smile and say, Amai, you've got a beautiful bouncing baby boy or a girl. Yeah. But this time, he looked like he was very nervous. And he's like, Amai, you've got a wonderful baby boy. But unfortunately, he has club hands and no thumbs. And I remember you've just given birth. So that's the moment where they're about to hand you your child, right? So you're also tired. So you're like, am I hearing correctly? What is going on?
It's the natural birth.
Yes. What is going on? So I remember holding Nathan. And when I looked at him, he had the club hands and he had no thumbs. And in that moment, I was like, wow, God. Not that my wow was never, why have you given me a child who doesn't have all of these things in me? My wow was, why would I have another child who will go through challenges again? Having seen what Natasha had gone through, I was like, no child should ever have to go through something like this. And so I took my child. And in that moment, I named him Nathan. And Nathan means God's gift. So from day one, it was never, because my child doesn't have certain things, I will love him differently. I loved him from the moment that I held him. But as you said, as a human, you would have wished that God had spared him the troubles and trials that come with that. And I remember talking to the pediatrician when he came in. This was day 2. And I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do about Nathan's hands? Because as a child is growing, their ligaments are still nice and soft and tender. So if they're supposed to do a surgery, that would be the best time. He's like, how is it possible that I am talking to you, you're not crying, and you're already asking me about what we can do to make your child's life better? And then I told him that I had gone through a bone marrow transplant with my child. And he said to me, there's a woman who gave birth to a child who's blind. It's been a month and she's gone through postpartum depression and is struggling. So it's I'm just amazed that you're this strong. And I said to him, you know what? I will fight for my child. I will fight to ensure that he gets the best in life. He's an equal, and so this is what I want us to give him. And so once he heard about the FA, he then said, I think I need to call in an oncologist again, because now that you've said your other daughter has FA, I'm looking at some of the features that he has, and I think, and I'm suspecting, he may have FA too. And so initially, when I'd given birth to him, I thought it was something that I had done. But I was like, so I'm a very occasional drinker. I can drink twice or thrice in a year. But during my pregnancy, I hadn't. I was eating my veggies. I thought I'd done enough as a mom to ensure that I give birth to a healthy child with no issues. And so then he said, they confirmed that Nathan had FA. And once they confirmed, this was within 2 weeks, the third week, I noticed that the brother and the sister would make so much noise while Nathan was sleeping. And each time he wouldn't even flinch, nothing would happen. So when we went to the 6-week checkup, I said to the doctor, I'm concerned because he doesn't seem to react when there's noise around him. So he said, okay, let's do a full body check and just find out if everything is okay. So I remember going to get his ears, nose, throat checked. And they confirmed that Nathan would never be able to hear. And then, as if that's what was not enough, we're also told he didn't have a right kidney. So a friend of mine said, look, just get a second opinion. So we crossed over, went to South Africa, and they confirmed that. And when the results came, I remember saying, because I like having conversations with God. Sometimes I'll kneel and pray, but then at other times I just have proper conversations with God. And I remember saying to God, I have been diligent. I have been faithful to you. I've gone through difficult times. And now there's Nathan. The one thing that I ask for you is for me not to learn sign language again and still have to deal with everything that Fanconi Anemia will give me, because I knew what would lie ahead. And so while we were there, he started crying uncontrollably, and I'll change his diaper, and I noticed a bulge. So we went back to the doctors, and they said he's got a right inguinal hernia.
What's that?
So his intestines, there was a hole in his intestines, and his intestines were coming out and going down to his genital area. And so he said, look, you need to get an urgent surgery for him. And we called our medical insurance company. They said they weren't able to assist us. We had to pay and then would come back and claim. And we needed 33,000 rands in SA. Again, I was with Eddie. And so we went back to the doctor and said, we don't have the money for the surgery. And he said, okay, when are you supposed to do the rest of the consultations with the specialists, the ones that would help correct his hand and other specialists? And we said till Friday. Then it was about Tuesday. And he said, okay, if I show you how to put back the intestines in the hole when they come out, do you think you'll be able to do it till Friday? And then I'll put him on painkillers. And I said, yes, I could. So every time he cried, I would go back, start pushing the bulge in, and then it would go in. I would feel it go in, and then I would change his diaper, and he would be much better. And we did that till the Friday we left. I arrived in Zimbabwe, went straight to the doctor. They scheduled the surgery for Saturday, and this was supposed to be a day surgery, right? And it was supposed to be a day surgery. And so just a few hours, 1 or 2 hours, 4 hours later, he was still in there. And we wondered why. When they came out, they were like, it was so complicated, we nearly lost him. So we're going to keep him and watch him. In the next few days, he would develop bronchitis. And so I stayed in there for 10 days. But in the 10 days, because naturally I am a giver, my heart is drawn to people. In the 10 days, Eddie would bring me 2 big cups because we're in the pediatric ward with all the mothers. He would bring 2 big flasks of hot chocolate, and I would be going around making sure all the mothers were warm. And we would have cold food. So husbands or partners or family would bring in food for us as mothers, right? But the food would be cold. And I used to say to the nurses, I struggle with cold food. And they were like, well, I'm sorry, we can't heat it up because we don't have a microwave. And after the 10 days, when Nathan got better, I asked Eddie to go and buy a microwave. So we donated a microwave to the pediatric ward. And so had I spent a day in there, would have left, and I would never have known the plight of the women who were there taking care of their children and eating cold food. And so that was Nathan's story, and then we experienced bone marrow failure again.
And you went to India again.
Yeah.
Sylvia, I don't know how you do it. Talk to me about your how has your spiritual life kept you going, your moments with God? Just talk me through those, because I don't know if I would have managed, I don't know.
So I come from a family of really spiritual people. I'm Anglican, but the sort of Anglican that will speak in tongues when they pray. I started praying from a very young age. I remember I would go to cathedral every Sunday, and my mom would go to what they called Rumoko on Saturdays at 5 a.m. And I grew up in the avenues. We had a flat in the avenue. So she would walk from there to town, right? And so my mom was always spiritual like that. And so that was ingrained in me. And even as I went through high school, we would go to Scripture Union. I remember at Queen Elizabeth, I went to Bonda, and later went to Queen Elizabeth. And at one point, I was the vice chair lady for all the Scripture Union schools. So I've always had an amazing relationship with the Lord. But when I started experiencing what we went through with our children, that demanded a certain level of faith.
Do you think your background in Scripture Union helped you in some way?
Yes, it certainly did, because it was like a seed. And so it's that, and my mom. She was a very prayerful woman. And even as we were going through the transplants, she would leave my dad. Together, my mother-in-law and my mom would leave their husbands and travel with Eddie and I. And my mom would be by the bedside praying. When things were not all right, we would be praying, So Scripture Union, a house where people pray formed for me an amazing, helped me have an amazing relationship with the Lord. But also, once I started walking the journey on my own, there's so many things that would happen. Um, Amazing, amazing miracles where if I were to tell somebody, they'll be like, no way. You were there the night that we raised money for Natasha. It happened in the blink of an eye. And yet, a lot of people will tell you that trying to get 100 US is difficult. You may go around to people and everybody will tell you they don't have. Try looking for 100,000 and then getting it.
I actually remember because I was working for Ricky Benkaiser at that time, and then we had seen the flyer. They were like, oh, for Dettol. Dettol was brand for mothers. And we're like, oh, let's go support this. I will donate like $200. That was what I'd left the office saying we were going to donate. And I remember sitting there, and then you said your story, and then you finished, and I was like, I will donate $5,000. I don't know, sitting there, I was like, okay, now I'm going to explain to my boss. I just like took, like, I don't know how much from my marketing budget for this.
Yeah.
But I don't know what moved me.
Yeah.
Probably I could just say maybe it was God, but I don't know what moved me. And because of that, that's why I want to speak a lot. I want you to speak to me about your spirituality and how it has played a role, not just you raising your kids. And when your mom passed away, I know there's so much that you've dealt with, and I know how that broke you.
Yeah.
You know, just can you talk to me about your spirituality and how losing your mom, the effect it had on you, and how you moved on after that, and the life lessons from all that?
Yeah, so as I said, my mom was an amazing pillar to me. We did the transplants together. We did life together. And each time I faced something difficult, she would be there by my side. And crazy as it seems, I used to work at the Embassy of Canada. So I worked at the embassy for 12 years, resigned in February this year to answer my call to serve. But before that, every single morning, I'd get to work, put my bag down, sit down, and call my mom just to find out how she was doing. And we would talk about the day. We would talk about the successes. We'd talk about the things that we wanted to achieve and all of that. The not so great stuff too. And she'd always say, let's pray about it. And I knew she would pray about it. So losing my mom was very difficult in the sense that I felt like I had not done enough. So we lost my mom to COVID. And I remember she came to see me. We'd taken her for tests. She came to see me, but didn't want to go in the house because she was saying, I'm in so much pain. We had just come from an annual holiday. Thank God I would do that. Eddie and I would plan always an annual holiday, some for our family, for our entire family. My sister and her family, my brother, my parents, his parents, my sister's mother-in-law. We always go somewhere, right? And so we had just come from this holiday, and she kept saying, I've got a flu and this cough. But she used to struggle a lot of times because she was a preacher with a cough and her voice. So we thought, oh, maybe it's that. But since it's COVID, let's just go and get her checked. And so we did, right? And they said, okay, that time people were getting tests left, right, and center, so they couldn't give us the results there and then. They said they'd let us know. And she went back home. 2 days later, I wasn't feeling too great. My dad calls me at 11 p.m. and says mom is not doing too well. Earlier in that day, he had sent a picture where she was sitting out by the sun, enjoying the sun, And I thought, okay, she's doing well. But I wasn't doing too great. And knowing who my mother was, I decided not to speak to her that day because I knew if she knew I was unwell, she would be worried. And I regret not doing that because we got a call at 11 in the evening. Dad says mom is not doing well. My sister Olivia and her husband have gone to see whether they can get a hospital that will take her in. We started calling the other hospitals that were here in Harare. They were all full. Then about 45 minutes later, he says Olivia's coming back. They got somewhere to take her. And then we said, okay, we're also trying to make a plan, but we're making our way to Rua because they live in Rua. Calls her a few minutes later and says, don't bother, mom is gone. And in that moment, I remember he called Eddie, so Eddie screamed. And then I knew. And in that moment, so many emotions got the better of me. I was angry at myself that I hadn't had a chance to speak to her. Angry that maybe we could have done more. Maybe we should have taken her to the hospital earlier. She didn't look like she was really, really sick. I'd seen a picture of her in the afternoon. I should have just spoken to her. I should have just let her know that I loved her. And I didn't get a chance to do that. And so that was a very difficult time for us. Difficult as a family, because just before that, we had lost Eddie's father to a car accident. So you go through 2 bone marrow transplants. At one point, I lost my job. And they recalled me because they had cut the position. I lose my father-in-law, who to me was a friend. And then I lose my mom. And my thing was, how much more can a person go through? When will God say it's enough? But even in all of that, I've realized that the trials and tribulations that we go through sometimes, when we assume they're just for us, are for a greater purpose. Because today I found purpose in my pain. And you know when they say in Jeremiah 29 verse 11, when God says, for I know the plans that I have for you. Plans not to harm you, but plans to give you hope and a sound future. For me, what I like is it's a sound future, but they talk about a future. So it means that in the moment where you feel harm is being done, in the moment where you feel things are not working out, in the moment where you're crying out and saying, God, how much more can I take? He's still saying, hang on, my child. I know the plans that I have for you. Had my children not gone through FA, I wouldn't be doing half the work that I've been doing now and helping other families through. Had my mom not passed on, I wouldn't have had the courage that I have now. I wouldn't have, I don't think I would have been praying as much as I am now. Because anytime I went through something, I know mom would have my back, like mom's got this, but she's not there. I've had to play mother to my father. I've had to play mom to my mother-in-law. I'm taking care of my grandmother. I'm taking care of my brother, my siblings. I'm taking care of my entire family. And so it's a whole different role. How do you keep it together? Because I know whose I am. I know whose I am. I am God's child. I know his promises. And anytime I go through whatever, I go through, I go back to the word and I take him up on his promises. And I'm not saying I've got a perfect life. I'm not saying I don't go through adversity, but I go through it knowing that he says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. So despite the fact that you're going through this and your way is not working, I've got you. I've got you. And he always does. Is it an easy process? No. But I know whose I am.
That's, oh my gosh, that is so profound. I mean, like, just you being able to just know whose you are. That's a lot, because I think a lot of us then, when problems come,
Yeah.
we throw God out the window, we cry, we everything else, talk about it to everybody else, and then as a last resort, go back to God. But just the fact that you know that God is there, and it means a lot. And I think it's very important for our viewers out there to also understand. So just a few life lessons from what you've been through, as Sylvia, the young lady, Sylvia, the mother, Sylvia, the daughter-in-law, Sylvia, the daughter, and Sylvia, the worker. I mean, some life lessons.
Okay. So for me, I just want to say value family. When all is said and done, we chase money, we chase accolades. Now there are lots of awards out there. We chase money, we chase fame, we chase a lot of things. When all is said and done, the one thing that will remain a constant is your family. Value your family. Children with Fanconi Anemia are susceptible to having cancers. So because the children had bone marrow transplants, that doesn't stop the cancer from coming. It doesn't stop certain strokes from coming. And so it's still a continuous journey. And knowing this means that I'm now intentional about what I do with the things that I love. Let's spend time creating memories with our loved ones. Let's love each other. Love your children. Do the best that you can for them. For me, I don't know how long I have my children for, so I'm intentional every single day about being a present mom. I'm intentional about being a present wife. I'm intentional about whoever I relate with. And the other thing is, which is something that I live by, give. Give from a place of nothing, but just love. A lot of times we don't do things for people because we are afraid that we might not do enough or we may not remain with enough. I've given from a place of nothing, and in return, I've never lacked. Even in the moments where Eddie and I don't have a single cent, we're still able to survive, because I want to believe that when you give, you've deposited into God's bank account. So when you go out and you are lacking, you go back and withdraw. But a lot of times we don't do things for other people. So my question then becomes, where are you going to withdraw from if you're not depositing anything? Sometimes it's not even just finances. It's love. It's sharing whatever you have. It's being there for somebody in their time of need. This is why we formed the Nate Foundation, to be able to do that. And last but not least, a lot of times we are looking to have somebody change our lives. And today I'd like to say, when you're doing God's business, He takes care of your business. As we go out daily to live our lives, let's begin to create a positive impact in our community and in people's lives. And when you start doing that, you'll be amazed at the amazing opportunities that will open out to you. In the last 3, 4, 5 months, I've been traveling all over the world, and people have come to me and said, "Oh, you're making lots of money. We see you making strides." No, I answered to my call to serve and that opportunity and working for God. And that has opened amazing doors for me. So find your life purpose and create impact in the life of other people.
Wow, Sylvia, and your book. Let's talk Keeping Faith and Hope Alive.
So I wrote a book. And I share my story as I shared it with you in this book about my family and everything that we've gone through. This book, for people that have come back to me, have used it as an amazing tool to be able to get by. Sometimes you think that you're going through a difficult situation until you learn of another person's story. And I say no story is a lot more sad than the other, or no adversity is better. We all have, each of us has a yoke to carry. But in doing that, I hope that this book will transform people's lives and will help somebody who's going through a difficult time. It's called Keeping Faith and Hope Alive because that's all I've ever known, to keep faith and hope alive.
It's amazing. It's an amazing
Oh,
book.
thank you.
Besides the fact that I knew your story when I read it, was like, sort of like I'm reading it for the first time, and you've done an amazing work with that. And with the Nate Foundation as well, please just tell our viewers a little bit about the Nate Foundation, what it means to you, and, and what's going on with the Nate Foundation.
So the Nate Foundation is an organization that Eddie and I founded after our children had gone through their transplants and everything else that we had gone through, because we said no parent should ever have to go through what we went through. There wasn't enough information out there. There wasn't enough support. And so the Nate Foundation provides psychosocial support to patients and families of people who have Fanconi Anemia. And we also give support to the doctors, because even as the children came in, a lot of them didn't really know what FA means, because it's what FA is, it's such a rare condition. So they may have read it as they were studying, but never actually came across an FA patient. So now we're doing, we've held conferences with doctors to educate them more. And we also help fundraise. We also help fundraise for treatment for bone marrow transplants. We currently have a child who's in India right now, just completed transplant, was actually discharged yesterday. So we're happy about that. And the transplant was successful. We're looking to get 4 more others to go through. One is going on Saturday. And we've also opened a preschool in Rua to support children with special needs. Remember, I said Nathan was born without thumbs, and when we went at Club Hand, so when we went into other preschools, they wouldn't take him in because they thought he'd be a lot of work. So we just decided to open our own preschool and also support other children like Nathan, who we felt could be integrated with children without challenges and thrive. And so Nathan thrived and is now actually at a proper school. At a proper school. He plays cricket without thumbs, has an amazing writing, does art, plays tennis. And this is what we always felt he was able to do at Caterpillar Clubhouse. So Caterpillar Clubhouse offers and fosters inclusive learning for children with special needs and those without.
Wow. Sure, Sylvia, we could spend the whole day talking and and just understanding your story and just listening to you. I'm just amazed that, first of all, your strength. I think, like you said, keeping faith and hope alive has kept you going, and it's so evident in everything that you do, and even the way you carry yourself. You don't even carry yourself with that, oh, feel sorry for me, I have all these problems.
Never.
Every time I would meet you, I've never met you looking all, even when you would call and say, oh, I'm feeling like this, you've always had and held on to your hope. And I'm so happy that you continue with that spirit and with that attitude. So before we close off, I want to ask a few fun questions. What's your favorite color and why?
White.
Why white?
It's peaceful. It's clean. Yeah.
And favorite animal and why?
Shumba, because I'm a Shumba.
Yay!
My totem is Shumba.
Me too.
Yeah.
King of the jungle.
King of the jungle.
Oh, yes, that's what are you reading now?
Finding Me, Viola Davis.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. I read that and when I read, I like highlight, scribble. I was like, literally,
Literally the whole book.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's such a me book. That's an amazing book. Yeah. And if we were to pack our bags right now and go to the airport, where are we traveling to?
The Maldives or Bali?
Oh wow!
For an eat, pray, love experience.
Nice. I love that. Sylvia, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for just being you. Continue to serve, continue to just give the way you give, and just to give hope to those out there, and thank you for your story and taking time out to just be here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm just amazed at the platform that you've created, Nyenge. And I just hope that it continues to grow. When a person shares their story, it will help 1, 2, 1,000 people. And what you're doing is the gift that will continue giving. So may God give you the grace, may He give you the wisdom, may He give you the provision to be able to continue doing this. And I pray that this grows bigger than you imagined. I know you're such a Christian. You're very spiritual, so I have no doubt that He will continue to use you as a vessel to touch lives. So I wish you nothing but the best, and thank you for having me. I do not take this lightly. This is such an amazing platform, so I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for your words of encouragement and just your time, Thank you. And the wisdom, and oh my gosh, thank you for that wisdom as well. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and please do go out there and buy Sylvia's book, Keeping Faith and Hope Alive. We'll put all the links at the bottom so that you know how to find the book. Thank you and have a fantastic week. Hi everyone, you've been watching Moments with Nyengeterai. Please remember to subscribe and to turn on your notifications and to just follow me on all my social media platforms. Thank you.